David believed his best friend would change his life forever, but he never imagined that same friend would become the reason he lost everything. What happened next left an entire company in shock. David had just graduated from university, while his classmates celebrated happily with their parents and loved ones. He stood alone holding his certificate. His parents had died years earlier, and on what should have been the happiest day of his life, tears quietly rolled down his face. Deep inside, he wondered if life would ever get better. Months turned into years. Every morning David left his tiny rented room, carrying copies of his CV, hoping someone would give him a chance. Every evening, he returned home with another rejection. His savings disappeared, unpaid bills piled up on the table, and many nights he slept hungry. Even so, he refused to give up. One afternoon, his childhood friend Michael came to visit. Seeing David's condition, Michael comforted him and said he knew a respected businesswoman named Mrs. Grace who was looking for hardworking graduates. For the first time in a long while, David felt hope again. The next day, Michael introduced David to Mrs. Grace. During the interview, Mrs. Grace was impressed by David's honesty, humility, and determination. She smiled, shook his hand, and offered him a job immediately. David couldn't believe it. As he left the office, he looked up to the sky and silently thanked God for answering his prayers. 3 years passed. David worked harder than anyone else in the company. He arrived early, treated everyone with respect, and never betrayed the trust Mrs. Grace placed in him. One afternoon, she gathered all the staff and proudly promoted David to general manager. The office erupted in applause. But while everyone celebrated, Michael stood quietly at the back of the room. Behind his smile, jealousy had begun to grow. That night, Michael sat alone in his beautifully furnished bedroom. He couldn't stop thinking about David's success. The more he thought about it, the more jealousy filled his heart. Looking at a photo of David receiving his promotion, he whispered to himself, "Why should David have everything while I remain in his shadow?" In that moment, he made a terrible decision. He would destroy the very friend who had always trusted him. The following night, Michael secretly entered the company office after everyone had gone home. He stole confidential company documents and carefully arranged everything so that the evidence pointed toward David. When the missing documents were discovered the next morning, Mrs. Grace became furious, believing the false evidence. She accused David of betraying the company and dismissed him immediately. Heartbroken, David walked out of the office without understanding why the woman who had once believed in him no longer trusted him. That evening, Mrs. Grace sat alone in her bedroom. She couldn't sleep. David's face kept appearing in her mind. For 3 years he had served the company faithfully without a single complaint. She looked out of the window and quietly said to herself, "No, something isn't right. I must find the truth." Early the next morning, Mrs. Grace went straight to the company's security room. She asked the security officer to replay the CCTV recordings from the previous night. As the footage played, her heart sank. There on the screen was Michael secretly stealing the company documents. She covered her mouth in disbelief, realizing she had wrongly accused an innocent man. Without wasting another minute, Mrs. Grace called the police. Michael was invited to the office, thinking it was just another meeting. Instead, 2 police officers stepped forward and placed him in handcuffs. Faced with the CCTV footage, he could no longer deny what he had done. The office fell silent as he was escorted away. A few hours later, Mrs. Grace invited David back to the company. The moment he entered her office, she stood up with tears in her eyes. She apologized sincerely for judging him too quickly and thanked him for remaining honest despite everything he had suffered. To make things right, she promoted David to managing director. David accepted her apology with humility, proving that true character shines brightest during life's darkest moments. From that day on, David became an inspiration to everyone in the company. His story reminded people that lies may win for a moment, but the truth always finds its way into the light. What would you have done if you were David? Would you forgive Michael? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Life Tales Studio for more emotional African stories.